Deep within a quiet, mist-covered kingdom, a sweet young princess named Snow White lived with her vain and wicked stepmother, the Queen. The Queen possessed a marvelous magic mirror that could speak and reveal the truth of the world. Every single morning, the proud Queen would step before the glass and ask its reflection a burning question.
"Mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the fairest of them all?"
She would whisper with a cold smile. And for many years, the mirror would faithfully answer,
"You, my queen, are the fairest of all."
However, as the seasons passed, Snow White grew from a little girl into a breathtakingly lovely young woman. Her skin was as white as driven snow, her lips as red as blooming roses, and her hair as dark as ebony wood. One fateful morning, when the Queen asked her usual question, the mirror remained silent for a long moment before speaking. The mirror replied,
"You are fair, my queen, true enough, but Snow White is 1,000 times fairer than you."
Hearing these words, the Queen turned pale with rage and screamed in absolute fury. She immediately summoned a trusted huntsman from the royal court to carry out a dark command. The Queen ordered viciously,
"Take the young princess deep into the wild forest where no one ever travels. Kill her and bring back her lungs and liver in this jewel box as proof of your deed."
The loyal huntsman obeyed the command outwardly and led Snow White away from the safety of the castle. They walked for hours under the thick canopy of trees until they reached a lonely clearing. As the huntsman raised his gleaming dagger to strike, he looked down at the weeping, terrified princess. Pity overwhelmed his heart, and the cold steel dropped harmlessly from his trembling hands. He cried out urgently,
"Run away, poor child. Flee deep into the forest and never return to the castle."
Left entirely alone, Snow White ran blindly through the tangled brush as wild beasts howled in the distance. She stumbled over gnarled roots and pushed past thorny branches while the daylight slowly faded away. When midnight approached, she caught sight of a tiny warm light glowing through the gloomy trees. Dragging her tired feet, she discovered a quaint little cottage nestled quietly among the mossy rocks. Pushing the small wooden door open, she stepped inside and found everything furnished in miniature scale. There was a long table with 7 tiny plates, 7 tiny spoons, and 7 tiny cups. Exhausted beyond measure, Snow White lay down across the row of 7 small beds and fell fast asleep. Hours later, the owners of the cottage returned from their daily labor in the deep mountain mines. They were 7 hard-working dwarfs who sang merry songs as they trudged home in the dark. Upon entering, they immediately noticed that someone had been eating their food and resting in their beds. The 7th dwarf peered into his bedroom and gasped softly at the sight of the sleeping princess. Awakened by the rustling, Snow White opened her eyes and explained her sorrowful plight to the kind group. Moved by her gentle grace, the dwarfs welcomed her with open arms and urged her to stay safely with them. Back at the castle, the wicked Queen asked her magic mirror the same daily question. To her absolute horror, the mirror revealed that Snow White was still alive and thriving in the forest. Consumed by bitter rage, the Queen concocted a deadly poison inside her secret laboratory. She dipped a bright red apple into the deadly potion, leaving only one harmless-looking white spot to trap her victim. Disguising herself as an old peasant woman, the Queen crossed the dangerous mountains to find the cottage. She knocked on the wooden door and offered the rosy fruit to the unsuspecting, lonely princess. Hesitating at first, Snow White finally took a bite of the fruit to satisfy her sudden curiosity. Instantly, the potent poison took effect, and she collapsed onto the floor without uttering a single sound. When the 7 dwarfs returned that evening, they found their beloved friend lifeless upon the cold floor. Weeping bitterly, they built a crystal coffin adorned with gold so everyone could see her everlasting beauty. Many months later, a handsome prince traveling through the woods happened upon the glittering glass casket. Captivated by her grace, he begged the grieving dwarfs to let him kiss her cheeks one final time. As his lips touched her skin, the magic spell shattered completely, and Snow White's eyes fluttered open. Filled with boundless joy, the prince took her hand and carried her away to his magnificent royal kingdom. They celebrated a grand royal wedding that lasted for 7 joyous days and nights. Even the wicked stepmother was defeated forever by her own overwhelming jealousy and malice. Snow White, the prince, and the faithful dwarfs lived together in absolute peace and happiness for the rest of their lives.